And a good morning, good afternoon, depending on which time zone you're in. Whatever time zone you're in, welcome to the show. You're in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Or perhaps you might be listening to us on one of our podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon Music. So thank you very much for listening. Big show today. Golf tournament coming up, the U.S. Open. We're going to be talking about that as well. We got two basketball games to talk about that are on tap for today. Going to take a look and see which way the line movement is going in those games and as to who the pros are taking in that game. And we have one baseball game to take a look at as well. The two basketball games we're looking at today will be the Hawks and Philadelphia 76ers, the Clippers and the Jazz. And then baseball, we only have one baseball game on tap, and that's the Tigers and the Royals. But I want to talk about streaks. There are some teams that are coming very close to being streaks. So we're going to go into that a little bit, so kind of let you know about it, and then you can decide whether or not you want to bet on that situation or not. But at least it's something more that you might want to get involved in as far as baseball is concerned. But in the meantime, as always, the first thing we do on the show, if you've listened to the show before, is we go into finding out what happened yesterday as far as betting is concerned, kind of give you an idea as to how the favorites, the underdogs did, the home teams, the road teams, data like that could be of some interest, and definitely some help to you if you're trying to be a successful handicapper. So anyway, let's get started. In the National Hockey League, the Lightning, a minus 200 favorite on the money line, beat the Islanders 4-2. So they've evened up their semifinal series at 1. The goals went over 5 in that particular game. Now, the favorites took a 2-1 lead in this round, but with that win, and they're at 36-30 overall in the playoffs. The home teams are 2-1 in this round, and they're 36-33 overall for the entire tournament. The unders went to 2-1 in the round, and they now lead 36-32, almost at 53% as far as the unders are concerned. Meanwhile, over in the NBA, the Nets, a 1-point dog, rallied. They were 17 points behind. They upset the Bucks 114-108. Kevin Durant had 49 points, and they took a 3-2 lead in their second round of the series that they're playing. Now, depending on where you are, but in Vegas, the total pushed because it was at 222. Perhaps wherever you are making your selections, you may have been either over or under, but again, it was 222 was the total points scored as far as Vegas was concerned, and most of the houses there turned out to be a consensus of a push on that particular game. The Nets were a zigzag play, but we don't want to go any much more on that. The favorites dipped to 11-6 straight up, 9-7 against the spread. Now, that's how they are so far in this round, 11-6 straight up, but 9-7 against the spread. Meanwhile, 41-19 as a straight up number, and 37-22 against the spread. That's almost a 63% overall total. Again, in this round, they're 9-7 against the spread or going over the whole tournament so far. 62.7% on the spread as well. Now, the home teams improved 13-4 straight up, 11-5 against the spread in this round, and they're, of course, at 55.9% overall as far as the tournament is concerned. The unders are now 10-6 in this round, and the over-under for the entire tournament so far is tied at 29-29. Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, the favorites, they went 9-5 yesterday. The Reds and Brewers closed as a pick'em, and once again, wherever you are, wherever you're making your selections. If you bet this game, you may even either had the Reds or the Brewers as a win or a loss. But as far as the consensus, it was a pick-em. Now, including the Giants, who are a minus 185 home favorite. Now, here's another game. They were down 7-0, came back to beat the Diamondbacks 9-8 in the game. Arizona trying to snap that 11-game losing streak, but they lost their 12th straight game and their 21st in a row. 21 games in a row on the road. That's Arizona. The favorites lead 57.8% in baseball, as the favorites are close to where they usually are now that the season's pretty much well underway. Came out to a slow start, but now they're starting to catch up as far as the favorites are concerned. The overs went 9-6. They're at the lead right now, 480 to 478. Nothing big to write home about, and because they've been flipping back and forth since the season began. So that's baseball, basketball, the National Hockey League. Kind of let you know what happened yesterday as far as the lines went, how the home teams did, how the dogs did, how the favorites did, things of that nature. Again, information that could be of some help to you in trying to determine who you're going to bet on come today. Now, like we said, we have two basketball games to look at today. We're going to look at the Hawks and the 76ers, the Clippers and the Jazz. We're going to take a look and see which direction the line movement is. And of course, that will help us determine in which direction the pros are going. And of course, we have one baseball game to talk about. That's the Tigers and the Royals. And we're also going to talk about the U.S. Open over at Torrey Pines in San Diego, California. So that's the kind of the lineup for today. And also, we're going to take a little look of kind of bring you up to date on a couple of teams that are going into streaks or are now in streaks. Just want to bring them to your attention so that in case you want to bet on those games today, we'll let you know what the story is as far as they are concerned. So let's take that first break. And just a reminder, you're in the sports wagering zone. And as usual, we do take 3 breaks in the show. Each one is of about a 1-minute duration. So we'll be back right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. Totally appreciate you guys listening and getting in touch with us here at the show. And of course, that's very simple to do. Just simply send an email and send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. The Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. If you have any questions or comments, be more than happy to hear from you as well. Now let's take a look and see in which direction the 2 NBA games of the playoff games on tap for tonight. Let's take a look and see how the line movement is going on them, as well as trying to figure out in which direction the pros are going as well. At 7:30 tonight, the Atlanta Hawks, Philadelphia 76ers. This is Game 5 of their Eastern Conference semifinal match. The series is tied right now at 2-2. The Hawks, they're coming off that thrilling 103-100 win in Game 4. They won outright. They were 3-point home dogs in that game. Now, in Game 5, as we look at the line, it opened with Philadelphia a 7-point home favorite. 7-point home favorite on the open. The public expects a bounce back performance from Philadelphia, and they're betting and laying the points with the 76ers at home. So the public is on the 76ers. But despite all this action, we've seen the number drop from being a 7 to a 6-point favorite. So you know as well as I do what this means. Pro money reverse line movement on the Hawks, with the pros grabbing the points on a road dog coming off a win. Okay, so teams with a line move of a full point or more in their direction are at 58% so far this season. And of course, Atlanta falls into that category. We've also seen some under money showing up as well. Despite the public hammering the over, which is not unusual. We always talk about it. We talked about it yesterday. The public loves a lot of scoring. They like to go for the over. They like to go for home teams. They like to go for the favorites. But as far as teams with a line move of a point or more in their direction, they're at 58% in this postseason, which once again, Atlanta fits into this category as well. We've also seen some under money coming in. Despite the public hammering the over, the total has fallen from 224.5 to 223.5. The over-under is 2-2 so far in the series. The unders are 10-7, or at 59% so far in round 2 of the playoffs. Now, one injury to keep an eye on. 76ers star center Joel Embiid, once again. He is playing through pain due to that torn meniscus in his knee, and it appeared to kind of hobble him in the second half of that Game 4 situation. So, with the series tied 2-2, the 76ers are still a minus 300 favorite on the money line, okay, to advance to the next round. Meanwhile, the Hawks, they're at a plus 240 as a dog to win the series as well. So, once again, looking at the Hawks and Sixers, the general public, they're on the Philadelphia 76ers. The pros in this game are on the Atlanta Hawks. The analytics are on the Hawks. And, of course, they're also on the under in this particular game as well. Meanwhile, over at 10 o'clock, you got the Los Angeles Clippers and the Utah Jazz. Now, this is Game 5 of the Western Conference semis. The series here is tied as well, 2-2. And after they dropped the first 2 games in Utah, the Clippers have really come back. They've won 2 straight in Los Angeles, and now they've evened the series. So the Clippers have won and covered in their past 2 games. Recently, they beat the Jazz 118-104. That was in Game 4. They covered as 5-point home favorites in that particular game. Now the series goes back to Utah. This Game 5 line opened with the Jazz listed as a 2.5-point home favorite. 2.5-point home favorite. Both the pros and the general public, they appear to be backing the Jazz, as we've seen the line tick up a little bit from 2.5 to a 3-point favorite. Now, keep in mind, favorites that have a line move in their favor of at least a half a point are at 62.5% so far in the playoffs. The home favorites, they're at 60%, okay? Including, that's over the total situation, but in round 2, they're even as high as 73%. Now, the short favorites, these are favorites of 5 points or less, they're at 63% so far in the playoffs. The Jazz also have value because they're a buy low favorite coming off a blowout loss where they lost by 10 points or more, and that's 57% against the spread, not only this season or last season, but over the past 10 years, that number has held up. Meanwhile, the pros have also targeted the under in this game, driving that total down from 223 down to 222. The over-under in this series is 2-2. So be sure to monitor the status of their point guard on the Jazz, Mike Conley. He's yet to play in this series because of that hamstring injury, and he remains questionable for this Game 5 as well. Now, the series is tied 2-2. The Jazz are still a slight minus 140 favorite to move up into the next round. The Clippers, they're a plus 115 dog to move up into the next round. So that's the story on the two games for tonight. Once again, the Hawks and the Sixers. In that particular game, general public on the Sixers, the pros and the analytics are on the Atlanta Hawks. Clippers and the Jazz, the pros and the general public all seem to be on the same team. They're on the Clippers in this game, and the pros are on the under in this game as well. Now, the updated NBA odds as far as the championship is concerned at BetMGM, the Nets, they're still on top at plus 180. The Suns are 375. The Jazz at 450. Clippers at 550, 76ers at 750, the Bucks at 1,000, and the Hawks at 5,000. Those are the numbers that are out there right now at BetMGM as far as to the line as to who is going to win the overall title. So that's the story on the basketball games for tonight. And of course, we're going to take our second break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little baseball as well. We got one game on tap to talk about, Tigers and the Royals. And we're also going to discuss a little bit about trends, upward trends, downward trends, losing trends, winning trends, however way you want to look at them. We're going to take a quick look at those, kind of let you know what the story is on some things, some of the games that kind of look like there may be a trend. I know there's one definitely that's a trend. The other ones are kind of right on the borderline as far as we're concerned. But we're going to talk about that when we come back as well. So just as a reminder, we're going to be back into the sports wagering zone right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. Glad to have you on board for today. We're coming to you live right here from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as coming to you on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcasts. We're also on Spreaker. We're on Amazon Music. You name it, we're on most of the major ones as well. So let's take a quick look at baseball. Not much to talk about. We have one game on the schedule that kind of fits into the pattern. And just to kind of give you an idea as to who it is, it's the Tigers against the Royals. And in this particular game, the pros are on the favorite in this game, and that's the Royals, okay? This is the only matchup that we can find for today. And, of course, we got Brady Singer and Tariq Shubal. They're the two starting pitchers for both teams. So the favorite seems to go into the Royals category as well. Now you're looking at about a 145 juice on that particular game. So if you're interested in betting that, that's the way the pros are going, by the way. The story is you're going to have to lay 145, maybe 150 as far as that is concerned. In the meantime, let's take a look at some other things about baseball. We talked about streaks. We talked about streaks that are winning streaks, and also streaks that we consider to be losing streaks. So although we only have just one game for today, we thought it'd be a good time to kind of mention some of the games and some of the teams that might be looking to get either moving up in their streak or hopefully getting out of their streak. So as we take a look at some games on tap for today. Now, as we talked about streaks the other day, if you're looking for what we call a streak, in our opinion here, a streak is 6 games or more. Okay, now you may have a different number. You may think 5 is a good number. Maybe you may think 8 is a better number. It's up to you to decide what you think is considered to be a streak. Baseball is a streak sport. There's no doubt about it. So taking a look at some games for today, there are 5 games we're looking at for today where there could be possible streak activity. First of all, you have the Reds against the Brewers. In this particular game, the Reds are on a 5-game winning streak. So, again, it's right on that borderline as far as we're concerned. But you may look at it and say, hey, 5, that's no problem for me. I think that's a streak. So you might want to bet on the Reds to continue on with this streak, or you may consider them coming off of the streak. Meanwhile, another game between the Angels and the A's. The A's themselves are on a 5-game winning streak as well. So once again, you have your selection whether you want to go one way or another. However, when you look at another game between Pittsburgh and the Nationals, Pittsburgh is on a 9-game losing streak, of 9. So in our situation, we're saying 6 or more. Well, that's at 9. Then you have Baltimore against Cleveland. And in that particular game, Baltimore is a 6-point losing situation as well on a downward streak. So you kind of that kind of fits into the category that we look at as well. And of course, you got Arizona and San Francisco. Arizona's in a 12-game losing streak so far. So you might want to take a look at that. One thing you want to keep in mind when you're betting a winning streak, let's just say for the sake of argument, you decide to bet the Reds against the Brewers. They're at 5. You think they're going to go to 6. If they lose, that's all you have to do. You had that one game, it's out of the way, and you're done. Meanwhile, if you take a team that's on a losing streak, you more than likely are going to follow it down, so that if Arizona loses to San Francisco once again, you become a loser on that game because you thought they were going to come out of it. Now you're going to probably want to stay on it to write it down a little further, because now you figure, well, now they're probably going to win. So when you get caught into one of those situations on a losing streak, you can go on and on and on. When you're on a winning streak, you're betting the streak. If there's a loss, that's it. that particular situation has now finally come to an end. So just those are two kind of things you want to keep in mind if you're looking to bet on a streak. So we mention that to you, kind of bring it to your attention. Sometimes there are little things in baseball or a sport that you may consider thinking about betting on, especially when there's only one or two games to bet for the day. You might want a little more action, or you may not like the choice of the game that we talked about between the Tigers and the Royals. So maybe you might think about looking on, possibly betting on a team that is on a streak or looking to get into a streak as well. But again, that's the story as far as that is concerned. So that's the story with baseball. With basketball, we got the two games on tap for tonight. And just to go over those real quickly, the Hawks against Philadelphia. Pros are on the Hawks and on the under. The Clippers and the Jazz. The pros are on the Jazz in that game. And of course, they're on the favorite of that game. They're on that game as well as the general public as well. Everybody's on the Jazz in that game. So let's take our final break. And when we do come back from the break, we're going to take a look at the PGA Golf Tournament coming up at Torrey Pines in San Diego, California. Kind of give you an idea as to some ideas and thoughts on that particular tournament. So let's get that final break out of the way. And again, we will be back right after this. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time, Saturdays and Sundays, 11 a.m. in the morning. So let's take a look at some golf. One of the major tournaments is coming up this weekend. It's the U.S. Open, going to be played in Torrey Pines out in San Diego, California. Now, if you look at it from a betting perspective, just think about what Phil Mickelson did. What a victory, that PGA Championship game that he was in. Most people wrote him off as a major contender because he's like 50 years old. But then he comes back, and those younger guys really got taught a lesson. He went off at odds of 300 to 1 or higher. So from a betting perspective, you can't get much better than that. Now, he could top that because if he wins the U.S. Open this week at Torrey Pines, that's his backyard in San Diego. He lives in that area. Mickelson is seeking the only major title that he really hasn't gotten yet. He's a 6-time major champion with 6 runner-up finishes in this particular event. But Westgate Sportsbook golf oddsmaker Jeff Sherman, he's not swept up in this sentimental storyline that we just talked about. He says, Phil's not winning 2 majors in a row. That's it. He says, I'm certainly not betting on Mickelson. It's so hard for these guys to win back-to-back majors, even if a player's in really great form. So that's Jeff Sherman. He's the Westgate Superbook oddsmaker for golf. Now, nevertheless, the public wagering support for Mickelson, who's getting odds of 65 to 1 at Circa Sports, 50 to 1 at most other sports books, remains very, very strong. The U.S. Open favorite in this game is Rahm, and he's at 11 to 1, who's another good story as well. So you have two stories going on. Because remember back on June 5th, a couple of weeks ago, Rahm led the Memorial in Ohio by 6 strokes following the third round of 64 holes. Now, after he got finished with that final hole, the 18th hole, he was forced to drop out of the tournament because a positive COVID-19 test was taken. Now, he's out of quarantine. He's at Torrey Pines, where he won the Farmers Insurance Open back in 2017 for his first PGA Tour victory. So the first PGA Tour victory he ever won was at this particular golf course. Now, regardless of what happened in Ohio, Rahm is the starting point this week. He's the biggest thing. Nobody else is really standing out. Now, recent major winners, Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau, they follow Rahm on the odds boards. Each one is listed at 17 to 1. Now, Johnson, he's kind of slumping since the Masters that he won back in November. He claimed the U.S. Open title in 2016. DeChambeau, on the other hand, was a runaway winner by 6 strokes last year at Winged Foot. So those are the top guys. Now, according to Jeff Seeley, who's over at the Vegas Sports Information Network, he says, I'm not as concerned about the course of history at Torrey as I think some people are, but I can certainly see why Rahm is the favorite in this particular situation. His course history in this particular place is very strong. He says, I expect him to be very motivated, given the last event that he was at where he had to leave being way ahead. Definitely would have won that tournament. He was forced to withdraw. I may look to make a live bet on Rahm. Now, this is Jeff Seeley talking, of course. If someone jumps out to an early lead and I can get him at 15 to 1 or higher, but I won't be investing in him before the tournament starts. So what he's saying is that he likes Rahm to win, doesn't want to get in on this lower number right now. He's kind of looking for Rahm to not have such a great open round, so this way his odds will fluctuate and go on up maybe to 15, 16 to 1, and it's at that point in time that he says that that's when he'll jump on him. Now, the U.S. Open was the last stage at Torrey Pines back in 2008. Tiger Woods won that game in a dramatic playoff game. Here are the 5 players that you should be looking at as far as this tournament is concerned, according to MGM. Brooks Koepka is 17 to 1, and the Koepka-DeChambeau rivalry could be the top story for this week, in spite of Mickelson and everything else that's going on. You can bet each player, each one of those guys, they're going to be fired up for a showdown on this particular stage. Koepka is the back-to-back U.S. Open champ from 2017 and 2018. He started Sunday at the PGA with the swagger of, say, like John Wayne. Yet he came in as a bridesmaid to Mickelson, came in number 2. So he has something to prove. He thrives on difficult setups as far as golf is concerned. Now, there are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and betting on Koepka in a major. If you look at the strokes gained over the past 20 majors, Koepka crushes the field. He's in the conversation almost every Sunday in a major tournament. He grades out at number 4 overall, and it looks like he may be one of the guys to look at to bet. He's in there as well. DeChambeau was at a minus 115 favorite in a matchup against Koepka. And considering DeChambeau has been in a 3-month slump, it looks like Koepka might be the way you might want to go in that particular situation. Xander Schauffele, he's at 18 to 1. Torrey Pines is a home game for Mickelson and Schauffele, who grew up just 15 miles away from the course, and they started at San Diego State in college when they were there. He tied for second at the Farmers Insurance Open in January, which is there. Schauffele has top 10 finishes in 8 of his 16 career starts. His worst finish in 4 U.S. Opens is 6th. So that's the story there. Those are the guys to kind of take a look at. It's the U.S. Open. It's one of the majors. It's one of the big ones. So they're going to be trying as hard as they can. Mickelson being the old guy in the group, going off at 65-1. Meanwhile, you have Mickelson, who actually did, like we said, grew up 15 miles away from that golf course, probably played it many times, went to San Diego State, where probably the college team probably played at that golf course. So he's very familiar with that particular situation. Then, of course, you got Koepka coming in also, coming off of his tournaments a couple of weeks ago. And, of course, you have Rahm, who really won the tournament at the Memorial in Ohio. He's going to be out there trying to prove something as well. So that's the story with golf. As far as basketball is concerned, once again, we're talking about the 2 games on tap for tonight. The Hawks and the Philadelphia 76ers. The pros are on the Hawks in this particular game. And the Clippers and the Jazz, the pros and the general public all seem to agree the Jazz are the team to beat. In baseball, between the Tigers and the Royals, the pros on that particular game like the Royals as well. And, of course, if you want to, you could take a look at some trends that are going on with some winning streaks, losing streaks. Take a look at them. You have the Reds against the Brewers, the Angels against the A's, Pittsburgh against the Nats, of course, Baltimore against Cleveland, and that big game, Arizona and San Francisco, where Arizona has a 12-game losing streak coming into this game tonight. So that's the story for today. I want to thank you very much for listening. Covered the golf tournament that starts tomorrow, the big U.S. Open down in Torrey Pines. We gave you the 2 basketball games for tonight, as well as 1 baseball game, and kind of something to look at on the side as well, taking a look at any type of trends or streaks that may be going on in baseball as well. So that's the story. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a very pleasant Wednesday, because we refer to Wednesday here as Hump Day. So it's Wednesday, middle of the week. I hope you have a pleasant one. And if you're going to be betting today or tonight, I certainly hope you have a profitable one as well. And we'll be back again tomorrow, as we're here every day, Monday through Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time, right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. And, of course, you can always hear us on most of your major podcast platforms as well. So until tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Time, I'm Chris Pardo. Thanks for listening. Have a very pleasant Wednesday, but more importantly than that, have a profitable Wednesday as well. Goodbye, everybody.